Yeah.
4 blocks. So we're just down the street here in downtown Portland. And we just wanted to basically tell you more about what we do and kind of like what we specialize in. Obviously, we are a staffing company, so we would love to, partner with you in any way that we can, and also kind of help you understand, what's out there in terms of the staffing world. I feel like especially when I was newer to the job search process, I didn't understand staffing or contracting or anything along those lines. So especially for more of those IT development focused positions with the big clients like Nike and Intel, that's the bulk of their openings are all going to be like contract based. So we can definitely kind of help tell you more about what we do and what we specialize in, and kind of hopefully walk you through that process of just understanding it more. And again, we work with a lot of top clients here in the area. I can touch on a couple, but we can kind of give you more insight on the types of positions that we work on and the types of clients that we partner with here locally. And we also do have a nationwide presence. I think we have 50 or so offices. I'm touching on too much stuff right now, so we do have other locations. If you are not, planning on staying in Portland, or if you are open to relocation too, that's something that we can definitely kind of help, chat through as well. So yeah, cool, awesome. So this is just kind of our background, and I'll just kind of tell you like my personal story too. I touched a little bit on our nationwide presence. So we work with a lot of clients, obviously here in the area locally. But we do work with a lot of clients nationwide. So Amazon, Microsoft, Verizon Wireless, United Health Group, you name a client, we probably have worked with them in one way or another. And just kind of my story too, I have been with the company for quite a while. So I'm a professional recruiter in our office. I actually started in our Seattle office, which is one of our larger offices. You can probably imagine Microsoft's up there. So it's really big and kind of a different pace than our Portland office here. But anyways, I started up there, came to our Portland office. I've been with the company about 5 years or now, so I've definitely kind of seen in terms of the market, the changes in terms of just having an influx of position, the employment rate being really low and things like that. So it's definitely been kind of really cool over the years to see the changes and see the way the industry has evolved as well. I don't know if you have anything to touch on that as well.
Yeah, no, so I am a recruiter also, obviously. I have been with the company for about 5 months, so definitely, a little bit. But so far what I've seen in the market, obviously, it's interesting to see what languages kind of come in and out. Obviously, at the Tech Academy, you cover kind of a lot of different ones. But in that aspect too, I'm currently working with a couple people from the Tech Academy that just finished the program. Obviously, they have interest from, junior developers all the way to tech support and kind of, just trying to get that foot in the door with a great company. Obviously, Sarah mentioned we work with a lot of big clients, and, the more foot in the door opportunities we can get to, that's kind of the goal, obviously, to make sure that you find a place that you're happy in the end.
All right, so we kind of touched on this a little bit. I think this is pretty updated in terms of just our nationwide presence. So we do have a few offices in California, Texas, kind of all over the map here. Big presence specifically on the East Coast. We are an East Coast-based company. We're actually headquartered out of Atlanta, Georgia. So that's kind of where our company lies and kind of our footprint right now. We actually do have a couple offices too in Canada. They're kind of like cut out a little bit here. So we are technically a little bit global, kind of working on expanding that global aspect there. And then we kind of touched on some of the clients that we work with. So again, we obviously work with clients locally, but we work with many of the top players. So this is kind of listing some of our top nationwide accounts: AT&T, Walgreens, Wells Fargo, Microsoft, as I mentioned, Comcast. So again, if you name a company, most likely we've worked with them. And we do work with smaller companies too. So obviously we kind of touch on some of the bigger client bases that we have, but we work with startup companies. It's not just, Fortune 1000 companies and things like that. So we definitely have, a presence in terms of just all different types of organizations as well. And healthcare too. I don't know if I touched too much on healthcare. So this is kind of like what we do. I don't know if you want to touch on this at all. Or?
Yeah, no, okay. Totally. So how many of you have worked with a staffing agency before? Okay, a couple. Okay, yeah, no, that was pretty good. So obviously there's a variety of different positions that we get in our office. It's totally up to you as the candidate with which kind of positions you want to pursue. Obviously, so the 3 main ones are obviously contract. We do anywhere from 6-month contracts to 18-month contracts. It just kind of depends on the company and the project. And another thing that we see a lot in our office is this contract to hire model. So obviously, as the candidate, when you're working with a company, you want to make sure you want to be there long term too, right? You want to make sure you're happy with the environment, you have a good relationship with the supervisor you're reporting to. So this is kind of a way where you can test out. Usually we see like a 6-month contract to hire where you're there for a full project life cycle, and then depending on performance, they take you on permanently. I know I can see some of the faces that makes you a little bit nervous, but luckily we've built relationships with these managers, and a lot of the times we can kind of cater to see what the likelihood of that conversion is, which definitely makes it easier in that aspect. The other one is obviously direct placement. We do hire full-time employees from the get-go. In that aspect, what I'm seeing in the office right now is a lot of those full-time are a little bit more on the senior level. Just depending on the company, but obviously, those kind of vary depending on the time of year.
Yeah, totally. And I think you kind of touched on all the main points here. So we do a little bit of everything, but it is kind of ultimately up to our clients. So it's not like we're picking and choosing, like, oh, we only want to work on this. So it's kind of, what their need is. So Nike, for example, we get a lot of their contracting roles, and typically it's for specific projects. So usually they are more long-term projects that are about a year in length. But again, we really just partner with the clients, and that's our goal. And obviously, we're kind of trying to bridge the gap here. So I would say it does change, in terms of just the volume of the positions that we have and the kind of openings that we're working on, just based on the client needs. And then kind of moving over here, this is kind of more of our screening process, which Tearyn is really involved in, or I can touch on this too.
Yeah, then we can kind of go a little bit back and forth with this. So obviously, as the candidate, you're kind of like, where do we start? Like, how does this, kind of begin with Insight Global if you pursue to kind of want to work with us? So we take you through a screening process, and this is something that we ensure to our clients before sending you over there. It consists of 2 technical phone screens. One would be with a recruiter like me, or Sarah, or someone else in our office too. And then also a screening with the account manager that works directly with that client. After that, we do have a preliminary interview with y'all, just so, I personally as a recruiter really pride myself in knowing my candidates like the back of my hand. So, if a new position comes into the office, I instantly have a relationship with that person and think of them. And can, go right up to that person that brought in that certain position, kind of talk about that candidate. After that, we do conduct 2 to 3 managerial references. Obviously, who better to speak on your skill set than a professor from the Tech Academy or someone that you've worked with in the past, just because they were overseeing you directly.
Perfect, I love that. And I guess any questions about that? And that's kind of something that we promise our clients too, is basically that we're doing our due diligence. We're not simply seeing a resume online, talking to the candidate briefly and just sending it over, see what happens. Like, our job is to really, again, partner with both our clients and our candidates. So we want to make sure that we obviously know you on a personal level, and it's one thing to talk to someone over the phone once. It's another to meet them in person and actually have a relationship with someone, so that's something that we really value. Obviously, reference checks, that's pretty standard, I would say, especially in the Portland market. I definitely didn't see this as much up in Seattle, but here in Portland, I would say it is kind of a smaller community. I'd say, obviously a lot of managers know each other, they've heard of names, or they know things. Just a little bit more of a tight-knit community here. So I'd say references are huge. Most of our clients won't even interview a candidate unless we have at least 1 reference on file. And again, especially when you are kind of starting your career in the development world, using a professor or something like that, that's totally fine too. But they want to know that, what's in your resume is checking out and that is, valid information. So I think that's something that we're always trying to, get on the front end to help expedite that process. And again, just the why behind that is that something that really our clients do value, especially when you're going through that interview process with them.
And then it's just kind of open for a Q&A. Yeah, if you have any questions, want us to go through anything a little bit further.
Yeah, any questions about like what we do or any of the clients that we work with or positions that we're working on currently? Yeah.
Excuse me. What percentage are your jobs currently that are contract versus contract to hire versus direct placement?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, probably the mix right now is like 80 to 90% are going to be contract to hire, kind of a mix of both, I would say. It's a pretty mix of contract to hire. And then smaller in terms of the direct placement realm. I would say that's a little bit of a smaller division for us here. But it is something that we've been growing over the last couple of years, especially. But I'd say that's about the breakdown there. But it's pretty much a big mix of both contract and contract to hire. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Could you each give an example of one person you worked with, how long it took, and the whole process?
Totally. You want to start with?
Sure. Well, I'd say there's definitely like a million examples I can give. It just depends on the urgency behind the client's need. Sometimes you're working, like for instance, on more of a direct placement position where there's many interview rounds. So that's something that can take months, to be honest. So that's something that I have seen where it is more of that longer interview process, especially for permanent direct hire positions. But I would say for more of our contracting positions, they're moving really quickly. So the nice thing about us and kind of like what we do is that we really are a relationship, driven and based company here. So, our account managers have, really built relationships with our clients. So there's some clients that we've been working with here in the area for years. So sometimes, we might be working with a newer manager where they're really strict and they want to see all the references, they want to do this, and they want to like adhere to their very strict and maybe lengthy interview process, but our job is to consolidate that. So typically once one of our senior account managers has more of a stronger relationship in place with a hiring manager, that process is very small. So we have that with a lot of accounts like Nike, I would say is a really big one, and I typically work, I would say, mostly on Nike positions. So again, if it's a relationship that I know is in place with one of my senior account managers, one interview will make a decision after that. So it just depends on the relationship there and also the need too. But that's just kind of a couple examples there, yeah.
Yeah. No, and that, I've kind of seen the same thing. I've seen someone get sent over to a manager, interviewed the same week, and it's been like a week process or even a couple days. But I also have someone that interviewed the beginning of November, and we're still waiting for feedback. So it kind of obviously depends.
Some clients are better than others.
Yeah,
but the urgency, the feedback,
yeah,
and providing details, because sometimes we're wondering too, like, what went wrong? What happened in the interview? So sometimes if there is a gap, and I try to be transparent, like as in my work, but sometimes we just don't know. Sometimes the client is not getting back to us, and like that does happen. Obviously, that doesn't happen all the time, and that's probably a manager that isn't one of our top managers, top clients that we work with. But that does happen. Obviously, I would say hopefully those are more one-off situations. But we kind of have to just try and roll with the punches and find something else. So
yeah, because that goes hand in hand, right? Like these managers are people also, and people aren't perfect. So they're going to do the best they can to, expedite that process. But, it's not something that's a full guarantee in that aspect, which is unfortunate.
cool. Anything else that we can talk about?
Yeah, what are kind of like the most common jobs that you place people in?
Yeah,
Or
Good question.
Good question.
also to add to that, like a little bit of like maybe what are the requirements for that position as well?
I would definitely say in terms of like hot technologies, Java.
Java.
We get new Java developer positions in every single day almost, especially with Nike. And I would say that's just something that we always have a need for. Obviously, AWS is huge. Any kind of like AWS cloud technologies experience, that's definitely something that a lot of our clients are looking for, especially when you start getting into more of the enterprise level environment. They want that kind of experience. In terms of other skills or kind of tech stacks, I guess, like Node, I would say that's a big one. Node and React are huge, especially for Nike. I'm being really biased because I work mostly on Nike positions, but I'd say we're constantly hiring for those development skills specifically.
Either that, and then there's also on the opposite side with the C#.NET. Kind of goes back and forth depending on the client and the stack they use.
And I would say it just varies too. I know you mentioned in terms of the requirements. I would, ideally say most of the positions they do want to see like a year or so of experience. But I'd say we do work on all levels. So we work on entry level positions up to more mid-level, senior roles as well, architect, lead, management positions too. So we do a full range. I would say a big chunk of them are probably more so mid-level roles that we have. But we do get more of those junior developer positions too, where they're really looking for someone that has a technical background, but is looking to actually like get their foot in the door and gain professional experience too.
Yeah,
So.
and I'm working with a couple developers that are more on the junior side, but they're both open to relocate. So it's kind of me doing my due diligence and seeing what we have nationwide. Obviously, both of those candidates kind of have certain locations that they want to target as far as like maybe Denver or Atlanta. And it's just, obviously we get positions every week. So it's just keeping that. So, as a candidate, the more information that you can tell a recruiter, the better likelihood you are to, get more positions in front of you and more opportunities.
Like, what does a superstar candidate look like for you guys? Like,
That's hard
Ooh,
to say.
that's
yeah.
hard, yeah.
I would just say someone that's really available too. There's nothing worse when you can't get your candidate on the phone, they're not responding to emails. Obviously, a lot of the candidates that we work with are currently employed and they're working full time, so that's kind of the hiccup there. But I think just being responsive, even if your timeline, especially with the holidays too, right now it is hard to kind of match up, with all those things going on. So I think just being transparent in terms of your timeline or your availability, things like that. There's nothing that I hate more when I first talk to a candidate or interview them and then I can't get them on the phone again. So I think just being available and being thorough in communication. And also just kind of like what Tearyn said too, just if you have questions or if I'm asking for something and you're not comfortable, just give me the why behind it. Our job is to help you and find you hopefully that perfect position. So I think if there is ever anything that you're unsure of or maybe this commute is too far but you're not wanting to tell me or something, just be honest kind of thing. My job is not to just kind of shove you in front of a role that's going to be the worst fit ever and you're going to want to quit in a week or whatever. That's not the point. Again, we really want to partner with candidates. So I think just being honest and communicative, that's super important.
Yeah, I'd agree because I feel like a lot of the time some people, obviously there's other staffing agencies out there too, and as a candidate, you want more opportunities, so sometimes you work with many at once. I've seen that in candidates I work with, but they get awkward if they're like, oh, I have a screening with someone else. No, we want to know that because we don't want to submit you to the same position that you might already be interviewing with if it comes in our office. So the more communication, like Sarah said, if you have interviews on the table, consistently updating where you're at. Because I know if you have an offer on the table, you don't want to call from me as a recruiter.
Square one,
Starting from square one. So it's kind of just being transparent as possible. I guess it's not gonna hurt our feelings.
How is the market for junior developers in Portland?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a good question. I would say it does slow down a little bit with Thanksgiving and Christmas. I would say it is a little bit slower in terms of just the volume of positions that we're working on currently. But I'd say typically January, a lot of teams ramp up. Budgets are reallocated for the entire year. So I would say that's typically when I see a little bit more influx of positions and things like that. But it does change really quickly. So right now I would say it's a little bit slower. Managers are heading out on PTO for the next couple weeks and things like that. So they're not wanting to interview and start that process right now. But I would say it does change really quickly. I feel like just with the holidays, it is kind of a little bit slower. But typically, especially at the beginning of January, things pick up. And I know a lot of our clients, especially Vancouver, Washington, we've had a lot of clients hiring more so for junior developers. I'd say even for clients that are bigger, Nike, Adidas, Intel, just really showcasing your skills, showcasing your interests, having your GitHub account on your resume, things like that are going to show that you care and show, maybe you don't have the professional experience, but you've been coding every day, and here's some, examples of that. Those little things go a long ways in order to kind of help set yourself apart from the rest. Anything else at all?
So besides a GitHub account, what else should a candidate have when they come to see you that's going to help them out?
Yeah, obviously updated resume and references right off the bat. I can't tell you how hard it is as a recruiter when you want this person to get an interview, but the person won't interview them because we don't have a reference on file and we've been working with them for a couple weeks. So having that prepared along with just kind of what you're looking for. Obviously, I know during the Tech Academy you get exposed to a lot of different languages, but if you have some sort of outline as far as, being more direct, I think that helps a lot too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah. And just being professional too. I think obviously putting your best foot forward. I know a lot of companies are more relaxed and things like that, but I think just being professional, being on time, even if it is a meeting with a recruiter or staffing agency, just putting your best foot forward, so that you're not, getting, you're missing out on opportunities. But yeah, I think those are the key points there. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good question. Yeah.
So does the reference have to be from the most recent job or position?
It doesn't have to be by any means. I'd say ideally we want something that's more recent. That's going to be more relevant to what you've been doing recently. But maybe if you're making a career change or something, it's not as relevant. So that's okay too. It just kind of depends on where you're at and kind of what you're looking to get into as well.
Do they have to still work at that company?
No, that doesn't matter. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much,
you.
guys.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Thanks for coming.
Great.
Yeah.
And we have business cards too, if y'all want them.
Hey guys, take some pizza and have a great weekend.
Are you